Jeff Ketchum, you and I have talked about what this Monday could look like since this game was put on the schedule. You and I have talked about, man, Catch, I would just love to do a show on a Monday after Texas beats Alabama, because it sure would beat the alternative of the depressing shows that we've done after losses. I gotta admit, I'm pretty happy now. I just want to know, are you as happy and as giddy as I am?
I don't know if I'm giddy. I feel like I've been working a lot. So, like, I'm tired. I mean, 10 hours of broadcasting on Saturday, all day writing yesterday. I got to figure out a way to mix in a day off at some point. But I think the thing that stands out the most on this Monday, Anwar, is that I've got reactions, but I don't know that I've got a lot of overreactions. I don't know that there's a lot of ways to overreact to going to Alabama and winning the game the way they did, the style that they did it in, the performances that were mixed in, I think, coming of age moments for so many players on this team. There were coming of age, there were coming out parties. I'm watching highlights of Cole Hudson and DJ Campbell obliterate Alabama defenders a week after they really struggled at times against Rice. I'm telling you, like, I've got reactions. I just don't know that there are overreactions.
I got an overreaction for you potentially. I mean, and here maybe the overreaction is also a question, but I mean, my overreaction was I saw a team that, if they do what they need to do, should be playing in the playoffs at the end of the season. That would be my overreaction.
But is that an overreaction, or is that just a matter of fact point to be made when you consider this is a team that, if they play their brand of football that they did on Saturday night, I don't think that's an overreaction. I think one of the things we saw Saturday night that we didn't quite see against Rice, and I think it was by design, is what the offense looks like when all of the pieces are involved. And Alabama had to choose. They had to choose a poison. And they decided they weren't going to take the Xavier Worthy poison anymore. And in the second half, you see A.D. Mitchell and Jatavion Sanders and Jordan Whittington. Everybody's getting involved. It's a really dangerous Texas offense. And as it turns out, it's supported by a better defense than the one that Alabama put on the field. I know that you've been quick to give Pete Kwiatkowski his flowers, not just this weekend and following the Alabama game, but you and I have felt like he was kind of wrongfully not given a lot of credit last year. That defense is really good. And I think that one of the things that we thought going into the season was, well, hey, maybe Texas will get into a few shootouts, and maybe that still will happen, right? I mean, it's a long season. But I think when we thought about where there might be stumbling blocks, you thought, well, maybe there will be some games that turn into 50-50 games, and those may still happen. But the defense coupled with this offense is really strong. And I think there's a very good chance that it's one of the best 4 teams in America when the season is over.
That's awesome. Okay, let me make sure we do a couple of things. I forgot to mention at the beginning that the Overreaction Monday is brought to you by Rogue Shop. Catch, tell us real quick about the Rogue Shop and the Rogue Shop products. You and I are both big believers in Richard and Rogue. So I love it when you speak about it because you do a really good job.
It's as simple as this. It's about improving the quality of your life in a lot of different ways. I mean, are you in pain? Do you have shoulder aches? Do you have joint aches? They've got products that can aid that. It's one of the things that multiple family members in my family use the products for. I like the cartridges. I like to smoke. I like to feel good. The bottom line is, whether you're improving your quality of sleep, the quality of the way your body feels, if you just want to feel good and, maybe have a little bit of a buzz during the day, there's a lot of different things and needs and fulfillments that you can find over at Rogue Shop. Scan that QR code. Just go check it out. Matter of fact, Richard didn't send me a birthday cake cartridge the last time he sent me a package.
Oh, come
so
on.
I'm going to go shopping later on myself. I got products that I want. And if they're not going to just be given to me, yes, Richard, I wanted some birthday cake. Then I'll go get it myself. That's how strongly we believe in the product. We'll even spend our own money if we have to. The bottom line is seeing is believing. Partaking is believing. Don't let us tell you about it. Go explore a little bit, find out what you've been missing out on, and use that promo code Orangebloods to get that discount and start getting hooked up.
Okay, so let's do this. There's a lot to talk about. We're gonna go for the overreaction portion. You're gonna give me an overreaction catch that I'm gonna pull out of you, but let's get to the super chat first. And now I'm going to have another one. I know you said about Pete Kwiatkowski and things to that. Let's get to the super chat first and then go to the overreaction. Anthony Hill is the college version of Micah Parsons. Also, I'm coming to the Texas-Wyoming game from Dallas, my first UT game ever. What should I expect? So, all right, you are a Cowboys fan. This is 2 games in. Is Anthony Hill the college version of Micah Parsons? And then we can talk to him real quickly about what to expect.
No, he's not that yet. I mean, he's 2 games into his career. He's not quite at the Micah Parsons level of dominating in college, but I think that's his upside. I think it's not a bad player comparison. And I wrote about this in my 10 thoughts from the weekend that I posted on Orangebloods last night. When he's on the field, it feels like the Longhorns have added a nuclear weapon on that side of the ball. What he's able to do and create can't be underestimated. This is why recruiting matters. This is why when Texas was engaged in the recruitment battle with Texas A&M for Anthony Hill and he commits to A&M, this is why you don't give up. This is why you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, because when those guys hit, and sometimes they don't, sometimes there are injuries, sometimes guys get into trouble, sometimes we're just wrong and guys aren't as good as we thought they were. But when they hit, you get something that looks like Anthony Hill. And look, 2 sacks, second on the team in tackles, and played with attitude. I loved him going into the end zone and giving Alabama fans the business with the upside down hook 'em. It's as if Texas weaponized the insult and said, bring it on. Like, there are things that guys like that can do that mere mortals can't. And what he adds to this defense is potentially a Micah Parsons-like player to this defense. Right now, if you want to call him a young Micah Parsons, if you want to call him Micah Parsons light, there's a lot of ways to describe that. He's not there yet, but he's got 34-plus games remaining in his career. He's just a babe. He's just a young puppy with big old long legs that he hasn't grown into. He's going to be a great player for this Texas team, and he's one of the many reasons why Texas fans should be elated at what they're watching on the field right now.
And then just real quick, Chris, expect a really great time. Get out there early. Check out, Bevo Boulevard and all the sights and sounds around the stadium and the fan stuff. So you should expect a really great time, a great energy, by the way, outside the stadium as well as inside.
I would say good-looking women, heat. It'll be hot.
Yeah.
More good-looking women. You're going to really enjoy the good-looking woman part of the equation.
It's supposed to be the weather's getting better this week, though, Catch. Well, no, Saturday's going to be a high of 88, but low's going to be 71. So it's getting a
That's
little
better.
Oh, yeah, the weather's getting better this week. Like the highs, it looks like it's changed a little bit. It looks like the lows are in the 70s, this week. So it's getting a little bit better.
Hercules.
Let's do another one. The super chat, and then I got the other topic there. Oh, there's a couple more super chats. ATX Big Rich, by the way, still working on the answer to that. There was a lot of going on. ATX, as you can imagine, but I'll get that answer for you this week. Okay, buy or sell. 2 parts. any of the other top 5 teams could have gone into T-Town and came out with a dub. So he's talking about Tuscaloosa. That in buy or sell, no other top 5 team could have finished with a victory formation like Texas did. So could any other team in the top 5 going into Alabama and come out with a W, in your opinion?
Maybe, sure. One of the things that we've got to acknowledge, it's you don't want to slander your own massive moment.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I watched an Alabama team on Saturday that I think's running the table. So,
Oh, God, no.
we'll have to wait and see what this Alabama team looks like at the end of this season to truly gauge. One of my big overreactions on War was I was ready to call this like the second best road performance win in the history of the program. And I was full of hyperbole. And then I put together a top 10 list and I did some research and I was reminded, oh, yeah, Texas played football for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they didn't just get good yesterday. And I was looking at wins. They beat an Auburn team in 1983 that had Bo Jackson on it. And it was 20-0 at Auburn with 2 minutes to go in the game. And I was like, damn. And that Auburn team ran the table, went 11-1, won the SEC, beat 5 ranked teams to end the season, including 4 teams in the top 10. And Texas went into their crib and beat their brains in. Yeah. And so, I bring that game up because we'll see what Alabama does. This could be a 9-3 Alabama team. It could be a 10-2 Alabama team. It could be an 11-1 type Alabama team. I don't want to completely dismiss them, but I didn't watch that team on Saturday and think to myself that only Texas this year could go into Tuscaloosa and beat them. Alabama's still trying to find themselves. And I think the thing that really, it's Monday now, Anwar. The thing that stands out 2 days later is how much better Texas is right now than Alabama. They're better at quarterback. They're better at receiver. They're better at the offensive line. They're better at tight end. They're better on the defensive line. They're at least, it felt like, as good at linebacker. I think they're better at DB. Texas was definitively better than Alabama, which says a lot about what Steve Sarkisian has been building. But I also think it says a lot about a slight decline that Alabama might be in. I won't say they're definitely in decline. Let's see how the rest of this season goes. But yeah, if I'm being completely honest, the Florida State team that mashed LSU the other day, they could win in Tuscaloosa this year. Certainly you would say that Georgia could do it. I think there are other teams, Ohio State jumps to mind, but you think about who are the rest of the teams in the top 10. Notre Dame. Notre Dame's getting a lot of hype right now because of how good they are on offense and how many points they've scored, but they don't have a win like the one Texas has. And one of the things I want to do throughout the rest of the season is rank the best wins in college football, kind of a running list. Because right now, Texas has something in its hip pocket that Georgia doesn't have, that Notre Dame doesn't have, that only Florida State and Texas have these massive wins on their resume that prove that they're really, really good. It's not a hypothesis. They did it. They've won the game. They've announced themselves to be really good. Now I'll be watching the rest of these top 5 teams, top 10 teams in college football. Your move, guys, your move to prove that, quite frankly, you belong to be in the same sentence with Texas and Florida State. Because if we were only going off of what's happened so far this season, Texas and Florida State, in whatever order you would want to put them in, they would be 1-2 right now in college football.
They should be. They should be, because it should be based off of what you do this year, not based off of history or the past. So if you're just basing it off of this season, which is the ranking should be solely based off of this season and not what Georgia did last year, then you could, like, whatever order you want to put that in. And to me, you could make a huge claim for Texas being number 1, being the number 3 team in the country. But nonetheless, it should be Florida State and Texas at 1 and 2. and then everybody else. But after that, based off of this year, what's happened. All right, let's get into one more of the super chat. We have one more, Aaron. Let's do one more, and I got the Overreaction Monday. South End Zone Queen, good morning to you, Queen. Buy or sell. There's another one, Aaron, because I feel like someone asked something about the shirt. Okay, buy or sell. OU has been prepping all off season like we have for Bama for the Red River rivalry game since they have the softest schedule in the Big 12. Do you think OU's been prepping for like week 4 or 5 on their schedule for Texas?
I don't know that it matters. I don't think Oklahoma is very good. I don't think that who'd they play? Arkansas State in week 1. They struggled a little bit with SMU last week at home. And I don't mean to denigrate SMU. I think that, think about what Oklahoma was last season. And look, if we actually give Brent Venables benefit of the doubt, then he's probably going through the type of season that Sarkisian had with this Texas program a year ago. So they're better. They're better than a team that doesn't make a bowl game. But I think there's still work to do. I think Oklahoma still has a lot of proving to do. And if they've been preparing for Texas, part of the thing, South End Zone Queen. By the way, you better be on my show later today because we've got some stuff to talk about after the Friday show. I don't know how much it matters. I mean, if Texas is hitting on all cylinders, they've got enough players that you can prepare for a long. Alabama spent a lot of time preparing for Texas. Believe me, Nick Saban didn't just show up last Monday and go, okay, it's Texas week. Let's start thinking about them. They've got more analysts than anybody. They've had people working on this game. And when the two teams got on the field, all the preparation in the world can't account for the fact that you can't match up with Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Jordan Whittington, and Jatavion Sanders without some problems popping up. And I think every team on the Texas schedule, if Texas plays its brand of football and doesn't play poorly, I mean, you can prepare all you want, and sometimes it just doesn't make a difference. I think the Giants prepared for the Cowboys on war.
Yeah.
I mean,
all off season. But when someone brings their A game and you bring your A game, sometimes it just doesn't match.
Sometimes the Jimmies and the Joes really do matter more than the X's and the O's. And all the preparation in the world doesn't matter if the other team has significantly better players than you do. And I think that the thing that we knew about Sarkisian that makes what they're doing, what was the question that you had earlier? Was this a foundation? A flash
versus moment? Is that the one?
It was like, was this a flash or was this something else? Like
is it a moment or a movement? That's the word. Actually, is it just a moment or is this the start of a movement?
What makes you know that you're watching a movement more than a moment is the talent that's been stockpiled through Steve Sarkisian's first 2+ years. They continue to stockpile it. If they were just getting by and winning games on X's and O's and, riding their luck a little bit, the proof would be in the foundation of the program from a talent standpoint. That the talent continues to increase only bodes really, really well for this Texas team. And when you get great quarterback play, and Anwar, you want my big Monday overreaction?
No.
You want to hold it?
No, because I got the setup for that.
Okay.
And I know where you're headed with that. So that's going to be part of the overreaction. Let's get the real quick, the last one about the shirt, and let's get that in there. Okay.
Now it's the lucky. So on Friday, and South End Zone Queen, you were part of this group. I wore just a regular old shirt, Chad. I mean, Anwar. I think I look good in it. It's a good color for me. And people were like, it's OU, it's A&M, it's Alabama, it's Arkansas. But we did the taste test. I held shirts up and we had helmets and we put it next to the shirt. It didn't match the color of any of those schools. And people were like, you're going to jinx Texas. Now it's the lucky shirt, though. And so what we've got to do is I don't need to wear that shirt Friday for the Wyoming game. It's like Charles Jefferson from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. We'll bring that shirt out when the moments call for it.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'll do it when Texas goes on the road. We'll do it for Texas OU. There's no reason, but I love the fact that now it's a lucky shirt.
It is. Okay, so let's do this. Okay. Let's do this setup. All right. And let's set it up like this. And listen, and what I'm about to say, Catch, it's all love. Okay. You and I have been on the opposite ends of the Quinn Ewers conversation since last year. Even after he had like a standout performance and there was a challenge of the QBR, and you and I had that conversation, and I was like, I think so, that it'll be like never go below 150. And I stood on that table. That didn't end up happening. You had a lot of questions about Quinn last season, a lot of questions about Quinn going into that. And I'm always like, okay, for the sake of consistency, you know, my sayings, I gotta always stay on your porch, right? So after seeing what you saw on this past week, has Quinn finally checked those boxes? Do you finally not have the same questions about him? Is it time for you to give Quinn his flowers?
I mean, I don't know that I agree with like the way the question has been raised. Quinn Ewers hasn't been a good football player up until, and look, it was only a season. I've been the voice of reason on Quinn Ewers. I've never doubted his talent. I've always reminded people a year ago, he's young. He's going to go through some ups and downs. You know, we saw moments of flash a year ago, but that's what they were. I think the expectation and the hopes would always be that there would be development, that he would be a guy that would get better. I think it stands to reason that he would be better as a sophomore than he was as a freshman. I still have some questions. He needs to do what he did on Saturday consistently. You know, it can't just be a one-off, and I don't think it will be. I think we're watching the maturation of a really talented quarterback. I'm not ready to say that he's never going to have a bad game again. I'm not ready to say that there won't be a game later this season where he has some struggles. But I think what we watched on Saturday, like properly framed, was the single best passing performance by any Texas player in the history of the program against a top 10 team. And there have been dozens of these games in the past. Vince Young's played in these games. Colt McCoy, Case McCoy. I mean, I did the rundown in my 10 thoughts from the weekend. Every performance in the last 40 years by a quarterback on the road against a top 10 team, what we saw with Ewers was an A++ performance. No Texas quarterback in the program's history has ever thrown for more yards or more touchdowns without any turnovers, let alone winning the game on the road against that level of competition. It was a singular, sensational performance. And it now sets a new bar for Quinn Ewers of what should the expectations be when this team goes on the road or when they play a quality opponent. Like, we've now seen 4 quarters of what it can look like. Now he's got to do it again. But I think Quinn Ewers is setting himself up to have the best statistical season in the history of the program from a passing standpoint. That's no small thing. They played football in Austin a lot of years. A lot of good quarterbacks, great quarterbacks have come through those doors. He took a big step on Saturday towards eventually being able to put himself in the same breath as some of the all-time great quarterbacks. There's still more to go, but I don't like the framing of like I'm on some opposite end of the Quinn Ewers spectrum. I rated the guy as a 5-star player when he was a prospect. That generally means I think he's going to be a first-round draft pick. If I rate a guy as a 5-star, it means I think he's going to be a sensational college player and eventually be drafted really high in the NFL. I think we're just watching the normal evolution of a quarterback. And the one thing I didn't do last year was expect too much before he was ready. That wasn't me. I wasn't the one that was like, be great year one. And if there's not if he doesn't have a great season, it's somehow a referendum on who he is potentially as a player. Again, I still think there's more to Quinn Ewers. I still think there's more to the development, but my goodness, Saturday was a massive step in the right direction.
Yeah, well, I think Quinn did what you would what I think Quinn did what we saw in times at versus OU last year, right? So I think
this is shitty OU.
Well, I mean,
was it not a shitty OU?
Well, I mean, it was still a good performance.
It was a great performance. It was just against a bad team.
And Quinn answered the question: what happened? What would have happened if he played all 4 quarters against Alabama?
Well, we don't know that.
Well, yeah, we do know that.
No, it's a new year, a new game.
It is.
It might have happened that way.
It would have happened
definitively for 4 quarters. That's the way it would have gone.
I can say that what he looked like in the 4th quarter of this game is what he looked like in the 1st quarter against Alabama. He was
with an entire season of performances in the middle of that leads to what happened on Saturday.
And then an entire offseason of the declaration of he's gotten better, which kind of adds to all of that as well. So, it is to me, that moment. I'll go back to where I was after Alabama and especially after OU, where I feel like this is who he is. This is the level of play that I think we'll see from him going on forward, because I think I think this is the A team. It's all come together for him. Like, I believe that this is it. I feel like he had it in him last year, and we didn't see it for different reasons. Like, I find it very interesting that the one of the biggest things that Sarkisian has talked about over the last couple of years, or last couple of weeks, last 2 weeks, he has praised, one of the things has been he has AJ Milwee on the sidelines for Quinn this year, and how AJ Milwee was up in the booth. And so the question was, okay, well, what was Quinn doing last year? And basically he would come off the field catch and talk to nobody. He would literally just, kind of sit there, maybe get on the headset, and really didn't have anyone that now all of a sudden this maybe he keeps crediting, like, maybe it's Milwee who's talking to him, so on and so forth. So, but I think it's the start of something special for him. Like,
it might be. I mean, that I don't know is completely in doubt. This has a chance to be a special season. I think potentially ending up in New York at the end of the year, that's certainly not off the table by any stretch of the imagination. So, I think where he's headed, we're in agreement. But look, you and I had a private conversation on Saturday before the game. For those that don't know, Anwar called me up on Saturday, because that's what we do whenever there's a big game, the day of the game. It's like, hey, what's your reading of what do we think is going to happen? What's the pulse? You and I had questions about Quinn on Saturday.
You had more questions. First, hold on. You've questioned Quinn far more than I ever have.
Well, yeah, because a year ago you thought he was done having bad games, and I was like, no, he's a young quarterback who's still developing. There will be more bad games, and there were.
Wait,
you're right. I did not stand on the table last year. I don't think.
I think. Hold on. All right, if you want to do this, we can do this. You have not been this soft voice of reason to be like, guys, we just got to see what happens. You have said Quinn's not good.
He wasn't last year.
Okay, so now I'm just saying, if you could go like, he's not good and he's not all these things, and the biggest question about is Quinn, and you rated him as someone pointed out in the chat, a 6.75. So like, you had all these things, like, yeah, then it's easy to come back and say, you know what?
Well, damn it, man. Correct.
Okay, and so when someone does a damn good job, don't you come out on that Monday and be like, hey guys, pretty damn good.
To be clear, after the opener against Rice, I gave him a B+. Jason gave him a C+. everybody seemed to think that I was giving him too many flowers. So many people were focused on the deep ball, which, I talked about as well, but I thought his overall performance against Rice was actually really good, probably higher than just about anybody that was giving out grades for that performance. I'm telling you, I think Saturday was the single best passing performance on the road against a good team by any Texas quarterback in history. It doesn't change that a year ago he struggled. It doesn't change the fact that even on Saturday night, I'll raise my hand. I'm fully transparent. I had questions about how good Quinn Ewers was going to be going into that game. I was wrong. I picked Texas to win the game by double digits, no less. But I don't know that I thought Quinn Ewers was going to be front and center when the game was over. I wasn't sure that Quinn Ewers was going to be the star. I kind of liked the team more than I liked the quarterback. But Saturday night, he gave me a big old shit sandwich and stuffed it down my face. He was sensational. And, I think the thing that I like most about where Quinn is right now, and it was one of the things that we reported a lot during August, is that even when the offense was struggling at times with the defense, the thing you really weren't hearing about Quinn was that he was turning the ball over. And I thought maybe the best part of that performance on Saturday is there wasn't one oh no play in the entire performance. There wasn't one ball that should have been intercepted. He's taking very good care of the football. And I think from a maturity standpoint, what we've seen through the first two games of this season, they're going to be highlight plays. He's got weapons all around him. But very quietly, he's doing a good bus driving performance in that we're seeing some wow plays. We're seeing the offense hit on a high rate of performance. But inside of that, he's not playing a risky brand of football. And at times a year ago, that was part of who he was as a quarterback, that he still trusted, he still wanted to make that throw no matter what. I think we're seeing him a little more reined in this year, but with all of the talent that he possesses, a little more reined in is actually a good look for him. And there's not a whole lot negative. There's nothing negative that you can really say about his performances through the first two games of this season. He's playing at a high level. He's not putting the team in any kind of risk. And I don't really have anything negative to say right now. There's nothing negative to say.
Yeah, I think for me,
but Anwar, that being said, I will admit I questioned whether or not what we saw on Saturday was going to happen. I wondered, is this a game where we're going to see Quinn exposed? Like, I'm okay admitting that it didn't happen. And more than like the idea of him getting exposed, it was like a 180 from that. He was sensational, and the moment never seemed too big for him.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to me, Catch. One of the questions about Quinn, and it became one of these things before the season, not by you, by the way. People have said, you know what? He just doesn't seem like an alpha. Like, Quinn doesn't talk so much, and he doesn't seem to beat his chest. And I remember I got in a huge argument with one of the guys on our staff about this thing, about like, why is he not do this? And I'm like, I don't know if that has to happen. And I think one of the things that you and I agreed on is that we've seen quote unquote alphas who talked a lot and sucked, right? It just, we've all played on teams who've had that, and they were like, man, he's an alpha. And you're like, he sucks. Like, well, that guy shuts up. Will he shut up? And I think the thing that we saw that I think was so amazing that, you talked about the stats, and you have a lot of good stats. I've talked about the environment in Tuscaloosa, that as soon as you guys would go to television, it became a concert. I mean, the lights are going off, the stadium's playing. They've got the loudest system I've ever heard of, right? And that him being who he is, I think, is one of the main reasons why this team never rode the emotional roller coaster. One of the things that I reported in the war room on Thursday was that Sark was making sure that he was not trying to get everybody pumped up, especially Quinn, because he wanted to make sure that when they went on the road, that they didn't go up and down. And we saw that, right? In that game, when Alabama takes the lead, teams of old, that's the folding moment. But that's like, snap, it's over. And then we saw that didn't happen. And we saw that Quinn never at any point became that game. There was points that are left on the board. An Xavier Worthy drop that should have been a touchdown. Jonathan Brooks drop that could have been a touchdown. Like, all those things happen. And I just think that Quinn, not from his presence to his pocket, from a playing standpoint, stepping into throws, moving around the pocket, scrambling when need to be, one of the better performances that I have seen for sure out of a quarterback. I can't remember, because it's meaningful, right? I'm not talking about a game versus whoever where somebody puts up some stats. So, when it counts, like the last time I saw something really good like this, honestly, Catch, probably Sam versus OU in the Cotton Bowl was the first time last time I seen a really good quarterback meaningful performance.
Kyler in the Big 12 championship game.
Well,
if you're talking about Texas quarterbacks, okay, but
yeah, exactly. But it had, but you get like in a meaningful game, and then of course Kyler in that game, to be quite honest with you, because that fourth quarter comeback was something. I think I've told you the story. I'm like, the Cotton Bowl, you're like, you got to make your way down. It takes a long period of time. I'm like, oh, well, Texas has got this in the bag. And by the time I get to the intermediate area, I'm like, the game's about to be tied up. And it's like, what the hell is still going on here? Like, it was amazing. And I thought, we did agree on this, that Texas can't have the season that it wants, without Quinn hitting the next level. And I think what we saw is what it looks like when Quinn hits the next level. You want to comment on that, build on that?
I was just going to say, I did think we saw a little bit of a different Quinn from a leadership standpoint on Saturday night. I think he played with a little more. Look, you know where moxie comes from? Playing well. When you play well, you feel good. And I think Quinn started to feel, I'm not saying he was rah-rahing it on the sidelines like we've seen some players, but I saw more. I don't know. There was a different energy about him, and the moment explains it. But I saw more want to from him in that game, a little bit more. He's usually so even keeled. He's never really a guy that gets too high or too low. And I think he's unique in that way. I would love to, I wonder if they checked his pulse in the middle of some of these games. They checked his pulse on Saturday, what his readings would have looked like. But I thought he was a little more fired up, and I thought the players did feed on that. I don't know who it was that crowned him on the sidelines on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Someone in the chat will mention it, but yeah.
But even in that moment, you could tell Quinn was hyped up, that his teammates were feeling that. I hope we see more of that from Quinn. I don't think he needs to change, because I think it's actually a strength of his that he stays kind of somewhere in the middle between the two extremes. But I am okay with seeing a little bit of fire from Quinn. And I think we saw that on Saturday. And I'd been waiting for that. I was waiting to see that a football game mattered to Quinn Ewers the way it matters to a guy like Shedeur Sanders, who's so openly exuberant with how much football means to him. I thought in his own way, Quinn gave us that on Saturday, and I was glad to see it. And I was glad to see him have that moment, because he did struggle at times last year. I'm sure he did question himself a little bit last year. I know he has to hear some of the commentary. And, the best way to shut everybody up is to be so good that nobody can say a damn thing about you. And that's who he was on Saturday. Ain't nobody talking shit about Quinn Ewers today on this Monday.
No. So let's do this too, Catch. Let's do a quick pause, because I haven't done one of those, I don't think, in any of the shows so far. Let's do a quick pause. let's go into some of the other people that maybe deserve some flowers on this Monday. Maybe Sark, Ethan Burke, some other folks that we had some like, all right, let's see what that person's gonna do, and we can say, hey, you know what, you deserve it. So let's do a quick pause and let's see if we got some more flowers to hand out.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the best defensive playmakers for the Texas program over the last decade. I'm talking about edge rusher Joseph Osai. Osai was one of the best players to come out of Tom Herman's 2018 recruiting class, although he was a low 4-star prospect who only ranked number 31 in the state by Rivals.com. Not a single recruiting service had him ranked as an elite prospect or inside of a national top 125 list. When we look at Osai's recruitment, it was pretty cut and dry fairly early on that there were 3 schools that stood out above the rest. From the summer of 2017 all the way into October and November, Osai kept a top 3 of Texas, Texas A&M, and Notre Dame. Of the Longhorns, Osai said that Todd Orlando and Oscar Giles used the following sales pitch on him. Quote, "They tell me I could be that Nashawn Hughes type of player. When I watch some of these close games that they've been in, I can place myself in that defense and see myself making the moves to finish those plays. I watch how I could impact the defense and picture helping some of those close games be wins." The battle eventually turned into a Texas versus Texas A&M battle, with Tom Herman's staff taking on a Jimbo Fisher staff that had just replaced Kevin Sumlin. In fact, the Aggies had been considered the heavy frontrunner for Osai, but the dynamics of his recruitment changed the moment Sumlin was fired from Texas A&M. It was the opening that the Longhorns dearly needed and received. In fact, by the time January had rolled around, Orangebloods was reporting from an A&M source that the Longhorns had taken the lead for Osai. On the last weekend before signing day, Osai took a surprise official visit to Oregon, but it still turned out to be a battle between the Longhorns and Aggies all the way up until signing day, when he eventually chose the Longhorns.
Catch, I don't think you get enough credit for those commercials, those 2-minute breaks that you've done. Those are really good. And I know the expectation is that you do 365 of them a year, which is totally unrealistic.
I got to make some more.
But it's like, it's so much pressure because people are like, well, like the good and the bad is like people have seen, they watch the show so much. They're like, oh, I already saw that. And it's like, well, cool, because you watch it every day, but it is a tough task. Okay. So, but I do like him. I just want to tell you, I think you did a good job. So I'm going to give Sark, I'll speak for myself. I'm going to give Sark his flowers this morning, or keep it 100 as someone suggested in the chat. Now my question, a little bit going into the season, I can tell, what was Sark, right? And hey, and I question, one of the things I pointed out is we know what his record was against top 25 teams. We know there's been the questions about, can his team win on the road? There's always, and it seems like at every point, Catch, it seems like he answers, the questions. Like at some point he starts checking up all the boxes. And I'll be honest, Catch, when he was hired, and I knew that Texas was pursuing Urban Meyer, and they were heavy. You and I covered that heavily. They were heavy in on Meyer. That thing doesn't happen. They hire Sark. You're kind of like, okay. 5-7 happens. You're like, okay. 8 wins happen. Lost in a bowl game. You're like, all right, I guess. And it's this game, if there is like the moment I feel like we'll say Sark arrived. And I felt like Saturday was that moment that, for all the talk, for all the like you can give him and talk it up, it felt like this was the payoff. Like this was the reason why you fired Tom Herman. This was the reason why, because you had a guy that's been able to build up the roster, that's been able to build up a talent level that, to your point, Catch, we looked at it at the end of the day, and we said to ourselves, Texas got more talent than Alabama does. And I'm not quite sure we would have been able to say that had they not made this move to bring in Sark. And I felt like this was, if there was a flag to be planted, I felt like Sark planted his flag, and it's a metaphorical flag, obviously, but I felt like he planted his flag on Saturday and said, you know what? I'm here, I'm the real deal, and I'm the leader of this program.
No, look, it's the biggest moment of his coaching career. We're a decade in, and he'd been waiting. And look, everybody describes Sarkisian as a wonderful guy. People like rooting for him. So it's difficult for a guy to be as far along in his career, right when he gets USC at the point where maybe they can start winning games like the one that they won on Saturday. He loses the job. So he's paid his dues. And I think I'm not. Alabama has more raw talent on its roster than Texas does. They've got more than twice as many super blue chips, and it stands to reason. Nick Saban has had all that success. He's had, you think about just this year's team alone, he's had 4 full cycles of recruits to bring in, which Sarkisian hasn't been able to do yet. He hasn't been here that long. But what Sarkisian did, his guys are better developed right now than Saban's guys. And I think the best compliment I could probably give Steve Sarkisian is you look at the roster 1 through 85, and Alabama's got a more talented roster. But they're not as developed as well. They're frontline players, the guys that they're counting on, quarterback, wide receivers, tight end. I thought the Texas offensive line was just flat out better on Saturday. Those guys, and I'm going to get to them in a second because I'm going to give them some flowers, Anwar. But I think Sarkisian and this staff have done a good job of what they have. They've developed really, really well. Think about this for a second. Of all their 5 stars, Anwar, all of the super blue chips that Sarkisian has brought in so far, have any of them missed? Name one guy that's missed. Can't do it at quarterback. It's too early to say. You wouldn't say it about CJ Baxter, but there's nobody else on that roster that's at that level. The wide receivers are hitting. Sanders, the 2 super blue chips they have on the offensive line, both started or played a lot on Saturday. He's getting the most out of his talent. I didn't think Nick Saban could say the same about his team and what his staff have done looking at them on Saturday night.
I mean, Catch. I 100% agree. I had Mike Bratton on, SEC Mike, on my show, which, by the way, highly recommend. You should get him on your show at some point. He was phenomenal. He ranked. He pointed out one of these stats last week. It's from this website. I wish I had it. Aaron, you may remember it there, but it was this website that did rankings of like assistant coaches. And he said Nick Saban had one of the worst rankings as far as how they rank assistants, one of the worst, one of his tenure, and I think it's one of the worst in the country as far as development of recruiting, track record, all that. It was one of the worst that Nick Saban attacked. And then he had been predicting as well the decline of the dynasty. And he's been one of these guys that's out there. Nick Saban doesn't have those guys anymore. He doesn't have that offensive coordinator that everyone's talking about. He doesn't have the hot defensive coordinator that's talking about. He doesn't have the hot analyst that you say to yourself, like, oh my God, that guy is on Nick Saban's side. The most notable analyst he has is Charlie Strong, right? That's the most notable analyst he has. And back in the day, he had a stranglehold on that. Like, it wasn't that many years ago when Steve Sarkisian was kind of like the crown jewel of his analysts and the guys that he had. And of course, he doesn't have that anymore. You look at it in this staff, Catch, I can see it totally differently. I can see that the analyst that he has that can make a difference, the guy from Wisconsin that's been able to help him, the other guys he have. I can see assistant coaches that you can say to yourself, you know what? maybe that guy becomes an OC at some point. I can look at Pete K as a guy that's at some point you just start saying, all right, I know this is a offensive world, but he might be a guy you should start looking at as getting a job. And I know Texas fans don't like that. People are like, oh my God, but people want to go on and do other things, in life. And so I think he's got a fantastic staff. I think he's, like, to your point, when you start talking about the development catch and you start talking about the blue chip development and how the 5 stars, he hasn't missed on that. Catch, I can't think of too many people that he's missed on in general, just out of all this past couple of recruiting classes. Like, when you start looking at them, we were seeing like Christopher Ross on Saturday playing, significant minutes, right? Or at least having some minutes. There hasn't been a ton of people that you look at and say like he's missed. Now, you can't hit on everybody. That's a hard thing to hit on, but the guy, when they're hitting on a high rate, like an absolutely high rate, they're not missing, right? As of right now, there aren't, Catch, remember what was it? It was in the 2019 Texas class. That's the infamous, Tom Herman class where just about every kid is a miss. Was it the 2019?
Yeah.
Right. You don't feel like you're going to see that, right? Just, you don't feel like you're going to, at the end of the day, you're going to look back and say, man, that class was just a total bust. And that is a credit to him. That is a credit to him, his evaluation, and what they've been able to do. So, he's a guy I give the flowers to. You have some other guys we can
real quick. Hey, I just wanted to sneak this in.
Okay.
Because my man put $50 in the super chat.
Oh, I missed that. Hell yeah.
Texas boy said good.
Effing morning.
Yeah, good effing morning. Unk, don't flip on us again. Catch, great pick. Hey, Anwar and I have joked about this. Somehow, Anwar the entire offseason is picking Texas to beat Alabama, and I'm picking Alabama to beat Texas. And somehow, at the very end,
midnight hour,
we both flipped.
I don't know what happened to me.
It can't even be explained.
It was it was a panic move, and I can't. I'm just all off season. I'm talking about this all off season. I'm like, Texas is going to beat Alabama. I can see it. I can see it. Blah 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 blah. And then I saw Rice, and I was like, oh man. And I was like, man, they're going to do it to me again.
The Rice game didn't bother me as much as it bothered a lot of people.
Yeah, it bothered me. And I was like, man, they're going to I was like, man, these boys are going to have me out here looking foolish. I was like, you know what? I'm like, they're not going to do this to me. I'm not going to be looking dumb. So you know what? I panic at the last second. And I'm like, damn it, Amor. Why did you not? You was selling it and you weren't buying your own damn product at the end of the day. It's
like you went 12 plays, 98 yards, and punted on the goal line.
Yeah.
Wait, what? You did 12 plays. You went the whole. It's first and goal. Why are you punting?
Yeah, it was definitely a panic move. So your Texas boy, it will not happen again. I'm going to stay on my porch. I'll make up for it. At least you guys saw all the other videos, and I freaked at the last second. It will not happen again. Will not happen again. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I put the this back here from the card. When you put the placement there for the media.
Yeah, your little placard.
But I kind of think it looks like it might be like an Alabama thing. So I think I got to take that down.
No.
So here's what I'm thinking as an alternative. What if I got in lettering? What if I put like this Texas score here instead? So what if I put like Texas 34 over here, Bama 24? It got some lettering instead.
I like the way it's set up right now.
You like it because I feel like this is the from the Alabama game and this is from the Texas OU game.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't change a thing. Don't get in your head on this.
Okay,
it's a piece of history. It's a piece of history.
Okay,
that's your little placard from in the press box, and I think, look, I guarantee you, everybody that watches the show today and sees that, they know what that is. It's a little piece of history.
Okay.
Don't overthink it.
All right. Well, clearly, someone in the chat says commitment issues. I'm like, well, you're getting to know Up pretty well.
By the way, I think it's funny. It was a couple of years ago, and it might have just been that it was too soon, but I made a crack about Anwar and commitment issues.
Yeah,
Anwar got mad at me, and I have not done it since. But as the years have gone by, Anwar has become the most self-deprecating human being that I know, and I love that about him. But I still am not the one that's making the commitment cracks, because I did that one time on the show, and I watched anger overcome your body, and I was like, oh shit, man, I did it again.
The only thing I don't want you to joke about still would be like me talking to like old ladies around Thanksgiving at the Honey Baked Ham store.
I was just thinking of that.
That's the only one I was like, yeah, because I hung up, right? I got off the show, right? I think I hung up. I was pissed. I got off the show.
But I did it again. I can't even remember the full context. I think I may have even just been like a reference to divorce number 2. I don't remember what I said. It was, I thought, fairly benign, but you weren't ready for it yet. But today, you
I don't care.
Captain.
I don't care. Now I'm
like, let's just make me the butt of the joke.
No, I don't care. That's water on the bridge. All that.
I don't care. It ain't gonna be me. Hey, I know you're up against it time wise. I think you missed some super chats. Do you want to knock those out?
Let's knock some super chats as well, and I'm gonna give some more flowers. Okay. Bigums, go ahead, Catch.
I've been saying what you have, Catch. I wanted to see Quinn play with fire and show it. He showed it on Saturday. He showed the I want it, and he was fantastic. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely wanted it, but it helps when the other people around you are hitting the next level as well.
It all came together.
Yeah, I mean, it helps, when you got your receivers laying out and trying to get the ball and not watching it go over their heads, right? It helps when A.D. Mitchell, you've got more options, within there. It helps when you've got the Ja'Tavion Sanders. It helps when you get an offensive line that's protecting you, because yes, you can get a little jittery in the pocket if, like, the last time you really put yourself out there, you got driven in the ground and had to miss like 3 or 4 weeks. So, like, those things, it helps when you have those things that are out there. I never felt like, be honest with you, just on that, I never felt like Quinn didn't want it. Sometimes we, as journalists, we get really particular with words. I always felt like he wanted it. But as it builds, sure, then you have that success going in the fourth quarter. Yeah, you can see it building within them.
You don't need to be a maniac on the field every game. Like, I don't need to see Quinn acting like, why the Wyoming game's about getting business done. But the Alabama game was different. It was okay, I think, for him to show a little bit of fire.
I don't need him to come out with face paint, like war paint, in order for me to think he's going to have a really good game. Like, I don't need him to do those lines under there and they make it into like a warrior. Like, he doesn't have to do all that.
Exactly.
That's over.
And and again, I don't want him like leading the team into the end zone and gyrating and I just wanted to see a little bit of extra fire. He gave it to me. That's all I needed to see. John, I don't know what bitter beer face dude sounds like.
Hold on. Before you go too far into this, I'm a particular on names. Jeff is spelled Geoff. Okay. Yeah. So, like, I'm big on that because people call me Anwar. Catch, when people call me Anwar, the requirement is everyone in the chat has to do a shot when I have a guest on. And so, like, some people had to get drunk last week. Not going to say it. So I'm big. So just so we're clear, John, it's Jeff. It's Geoff going forward. All right, go ahead.
If I sounded bitter today, I feel like I'm in a good. Texas beat Alabama. There's 500 people in the show watching the show right now. We had like 50 people sign up over the weekend on Orangebloods. Like, I promise you.
Oh yeah.
I apologize if to you I sound like bitter beer face dude, which weirdly you don't disagree with. I think that was probably just talking about the Quinn part and like
Earlier.
I just needed to see it, but I feel like the talent. I'll be honest, I didn't know that we were definitely going to see it. I mean, I'll raise my hand. I had some questions even going into Saturday night. Never about ability. It was, is Quinn going to be one of these dudes that gets the most out of his ability? He did on Saturday night. And like I said in my column yesterday, time for me to sit down and shut the hell up. Let's see. Let's knock these supers. Catch Jamari. I like that spelling, by the way.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
You brought up stats for the wide receivers opposite Worthy. I'm interested to see production of AD compared to the wide receivers. I think the sample size is too soon. We've only got 2 games, but they weren't getting anything from that outside receiving positions until Casey Kane had the big game in the bowl game. So right now it's what AD's got 3 touchdowns, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I mean, that's 3 touchdowns to none. I mean, they weren't getting production other than Xavier Worthy. And we bemoaned them losing Isaiah Nayor last year. It was like, oh, he was supposed to be doing what AD Mitchell is doing right now. AD Mitchell's not getting a high volume of targets, but all he does is catch touchdowns and make big plays. And that's kind of what was expected of him this season. So far, he's been the guy that Texas thought they were getting from him.
You know what? Like AD Mitchell, it's almost like it lulls you to sleep, and you forget he's out there, and then next thing you know, it's like bam, 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 bam. You're like, oh snap, there's AD Mitchell.
Matt says, "Are we about to see a boom in recruiting?" I mean, you've already been seeing a boom in recruiting. Booms in recruiting have not been an issue since Sarkisian came along. Yes, I think you will see a bigger boom. I just don't know how to quite describe it yet because I already had them getting Brandon Baker. I've already future casted them getting Ryan Wingo. I've already future casted them getting Kobe Black. For the majority of their prime targets, I favored them going into Saturday on where I think this will help them with some potential flips. Keep an eye on Dominic McKinley. Yeah. I said the day he committed, I'm not even going to bother changing my future cast to Texas A&M. That kid's recruitment's going to open back up when his high school season is over. We'll see then. I think there are a number of guys. I think we can see 2 or 3 flips. I think pinpointing exactly who those guys are is a little difficult. It hasn't quite emerged. But yeah, I would expect that would absolutely happen in quick order.
Is that all the super chats that we got?
Okay. No, I mean, I don't know how many you did and didn't do. There's a bunch of them. The loss of Kyle Flood is having a bigger impact for Saban than anyone anticipated and is the biggest hit he has taken.
I mean, that's potential buy there. I mean, there's not an offensive lineman that you saw to yourself you said to yourself, oh man, that guy there, he's that dude. Like not like I feel like that's a huge thing, and it started from a recruiting standpoint as well. Like, yeah, I'd have to buy. I'd have to know a list of guys that they had catch, but losing Kyle Flood is a massive loss for them.
I think now we're caught up on super chats.
Okay. And I have so much. Can we do some rapid fire for like
5
minutes?
Sure, right. Show shit.
Yeah, all right, let's do. I want to do rapid fire with you, and you just give me some quick answers to some of these things. All right. Ethan Burke, was that a coming out game for him?
No, I think he played well. I didn't think that was a coming out party. I think he's playing well, but I don't think he's had the coming out party yet, which I think speaks really well of him.
I'll get you a super chat in a second, Harris. So don't go anywhere. Brett Yarmark was he crying tears of anguish on Saturday night?
No, but like I think guys don't like to get embarrassed. I think Texas is putting him. He embarrassed himself, And Texas performing as well as they have, I think makes it more embarrassing. And that's a guy that's done a really good job in his tenure. He should not have said what he said. And I don't think he in a million years thought that A, that would get out, and B, be the thing that it was. He's in a position now. The Big 12 tried to celebrate Texas's win with a little tweet on Saturday night. And Texas fans are like, nah, man, no. There's a lot. Save that. Save that energy. We don't want you. Just you go on away. So it is what it is. I think he is going to be living in a state of embarrassment that may reach its ascension in a Big 12 championship game if he has to hand the trophy over to Steve Sarkisian and Chris Del Conte's on stage and he has to do that, professionally, I think would be a low point in his life.
He gets booed the moment he starts talking, right? I mean, just
Roger Goodell style.
Yeah. All right, a couple more and I'll get into this one. There were questions about David Benda, Keaton Crawford going into the season. And we kept hearing in the offseason, especially in the spring, hey, he's running with the ones, so on and so forth. Keaton Crawford's running with the ones. Those guys had the best games of their careers. Would you take that if that was a buy or sell question?
Buy. And I want to say two things real quick, specifically about Benda. That guy wasn't good enough to get on the field most of the year last year. He played incredibly well on Saturday. Props to him for improving to the level that he could be on a field against Alabama. A year ago, they didn't want him on the field, and now they can't take him off. Props to him and props to Jeff Choate for getting the most out of his guys. To me, that is a Jeff Choate development, and he may not be an elite recruiter, but boy, he can coach some football, and I think the development of Jalen Ford is an example of that. But what he's done with David Benda in a short amount of time is nothing short of sensational. Well done, both of those guys.
Yeah, and doesn't it seem like every year there was a guy that's on this roster that was like left for dead, that somehow they revitalized? Like Tope Amade was a guy who was left for dead, and then all of a sudden revitalized. There was a Christian Jones comes to mind, that it was a guy that was just like, oh my God. And now you're like, oh yeah, you want that guy out there. And like you said, Benda, Keaton Crawford, Jaron Thompson to a certain degree, look extremely well. So, there was that one. All right. One of the last ones. Oh, Jed Bush had a good game too. I mean,
Bush, we need to start acknowledging that Jed Bush is pretty good. He's not going to play in the NFL. He's not a great player, but the coaches like him for a reason, and he's a good college football player.
All right, there was a super chat, and I got tagged in this thing. I was busy yesterday. Off topic, did you see the video about the fans harassing Trey Wisner and the other guys that stands on the side? Did you see that thing, Catch?
I did.
So I'll give you my thoughts on it. I let it go on Sunday because I just didn't want that to be the thing that overshadowed a huge Texas win. Like, I didn't want fans and Texas fans to come away to be that. So Harris, that's the thing. I feel like there are idiots everywhere. There are ignorant people everywhere. And people say dumbass crap and horrible crap and that crap, go back to the projects, all that bull BS. And I don't want to curse on a Sunday morning. Totally unacceptable. I hope that from a Bama side perspective, they should be able to know where that came from, and hopefully they'll look into that and make sure that doesn't happen again. But sometimes the best success that you can have is the best way to get back at people is by having success. And so listen, yes, they're going to say their crap, but at the end of the day, they still had to go back to their miserable lives and go back to their miserable existence. And you guys went on and had a big victory. So again, it's BS. It's unfortunate. It should never happen. But at the end of the day, all that talking didn't change a Texas victory. All that talking didn't take away the joy. It should not take away the joy of the moment. So I've seen it. I'm tagged in it. I get notifications every couple of minutes about it. But honestly, I'll be honest with you, Harris, how I feel. F those guys. F those guys and keep it moving. They can't control anything in your life. F them and go on and live your best life. That's how I feel.
I'll let that be
okay.
The statement on that.
Okay, yeah. And if it was a late night, I would totally go a little bit more. But
I've got a rant on War, but it's your show and you said it.
No, go ahead. Give me your rant. Close it off with your rant. I love it.
I saw a lot of commentary from Texas fans who were like, great trip. The fan base was, Alabama's fans were great, blah, 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 blah. And I just think it's a reminder sometimes that the experience of white people and the experience of black people can be completely different things. I was at Ohio State in 2005 with Sean Adams. We nearly went to jail that night because he was getting showered with N-bombs while we were in a taxi cab. And like, we had to make a decision. Are we going to get out and like fight these dudes, or are we going to just stay in the car and be good human beings? But like, sometimes it takes everything in your power to make the right decision. And I think sometimes, we just have different perspectives of what an experience can be like for one person versus another. And, maybe keep that in mind. I thought the Texas players did a great job of not making that an issue when there's an alternative universe out there where they walk towards those fans in the stands.
Oh yeah.
And something happens. They were the better people. And therefore it wasn't really a huge incident, but shame on those Alabama fans. Shame on Alabama for not policing that situation better. Those people should have been thrown out of the game. The people in that section should have made sure that those people were thrown out of the game. And, I'm guessing that it wasn't just an isolated instance either. But good that we haven't heard of any, we didn't hear any negative things outside the stadium in the way of fights, in the way of confrontations. I've been in situations before where that hasn't been the case. And so kudos to everybody involved for at least keeping it somewhat isolated. But that was an ugly. I don't know how, if you're in that area, how you let that go if that's near you. At some point,
correct.
You have to, there has to be a right and a wrong, and you have to want to be on the right side of things. And just because there was video of that shouldn't be the barometer. It shouldn't be, oh, well, that got out. We should all be looking to police that behavior when it exists, because people do it because they feel comfortable. People do that stuff because they think everybody around them agrees with them. They think they're in the right. And when you sit down and you shut up and you let that stuff go, you're letting the bad guys win. And it was disappointing to not hear that along with that happening, that those people were thrown out of the stadium, removed from the crowd. Alabama needs to do a better job of making sure that stuff doesn't happen. The Texas players didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. But those are kids, man. Those are kids playing a game. And to shower them with that level of hate and ugliness was just left a real bad taste in my mouth.
But you know what? Last thing I'll say about punks like that, they feel real comfortable saying stuff like that where they know no one can get to them.
For real.
But they wasn't trying to roll up to the team bus and say that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's easy to say that where I know you would have to climb up and try to come and get me. Like, there's a level you can say it from there, but that's how they're real punks, real cowards, because they didn't roll out outside that stadium looking for the first person they can find, the first black dude they can find. Like, hey, you know what? I have something I would like to say to you. Hell no, they don't. Listen. Ain't nobody want to catch one of those chairs anymore, Catch. Nobody wants a folding chair.
I was told in 2014 that racism in the South was over. That's what I was told. That's what people told me a decade ago. Well, college football fans.
Well, props to those young men for not letting it get to them, and I hope it didn't let.
They just kept on dancing.
They just kept dancing. And again, hey, this is bothering you, I would have danced some more and kept laughing at you because, again, you got to go back to your miserable existence. So props to them for how they handle that. On that note, Catch, it's a bright note. We find, 60-day free trial. Man, Catch, make sure it's the time. Listen.
There's a lot of A's in there. Make sure that the A's and the R's don't get confused.
Yeah, there's a why is it Texas? Yeah, wow. We got to do a better font there.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't beat Bama. I was trying to think of like a code, and I went with Texas arrives because I didn't want to put Texas is back. So
we just need a better font for the A's because it looks like it's a bunch of R's, but it's a Texas arrives though. 60-day free trial. I'll go ahead and scan that, bang that thing. Here's what's great about Orangebloods. You're going to get your news. You're going to get your news. Of course, you're going to get recruiting stuff. You become an insider. A lot of the things that you saw on Saturday have been reported. A lot of things that you've seen in the season have been reported over the summer, but you get to join a community. So like, you know how you guys enjoyed talking to each other in the chat, you get to enjoy a community, the largest long community where you get to talk about the sports, but you get to people talk about movies and they talk about things in life and they talk about places they're traveling to and give me some recommendations for a place in Mexico or Europe, or I'm going to Australia. Like it's more than just, it's like a Longhorn Reddit to be kind of when you think about it. So it's a lot of fun. 60 days for you to try it out. If you don't like it after 60 days, be like, man, I'm out.
I will be so disappointed if after 60 days we haven't done enough to win your 30 cents a day. I feel like we'll come true on that. And if not us, you'll have fun on the message boards because it is the best message board in the industry. It was Reddit a decade plus before Reddit ever thought about being a thing. We invented Reddit.
Yes. So check it out. You got the QR code. Texas arrives as opposed to Texas Rivers or something like that. Use promo Texas arrives. And I'm telling you, this is the time. You can't get enough of these Longhorns. It's 550 you. By the way, so many of y'all are in here. I'm hoping you're hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel. Catch will be here at noon. He's going to have House Divided with him and Chad Hastings. Catch will have a lot to talk about Texas. Chad will not have a lot to say about as it relates to Texas A&M. By the way, I wish I had more time. Golly, one of the worst hires of the last decade is Jimbo Fisher. One of the decade, 15 years, whatever it may be, because they can't get out of this contract with this guy who is basically the death to their program. They are stuck. They are screwed. And no matter how much they try to talk themselves into A&M possibly being something, they just can't be. So Catch will have, I'm sure, a lot to say this afternoon, right? Alex, Friends, Football with Friends. We've got the OB Outsiders tonight. And then you got to wake up in the morning with Hook 'em Horns, right? That's it, right? Horns up, something. What's my morning?
Get your horns up.
Get your horns up. Darn it. Get your horns up. Get them down if you're Anthony Hill just to throw in people's face.
By the way, ESPN's Matt Berry from he's on set for everything, but he'll be joining us today in the 2:00 hour, recapping the biggest win in college football so far this season.
Nice, man. I wish we had more time. I wish we had more. I have so much more to discuss. I would love to discuss the Michigan State debacle and just rip that guy. I would love to just do so much, and but I got to get down to Sark.
You need to go.
Yeah, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here. So how about this? How about you promise that you come back on the show later on this week so we can finish the conversations? Because I have way more to discuss. Is that cool?
I'm here anytime you ever need me.
All right. Hey, guys, I gotta go. Sark is speaking in an hour. I gotta haul my ass from Cedar Park down to UT, and not get a ticket in the process. And not get ticketed by UT police, because God knows I don't want any of that. So I appreciate you checking us out. Make sure you come back at noon for Chad and Jeff Ketchum, House Divided. That thing was going to be totally amazing. Until tomorrow. Remember, I always say, live each day like it's last. One day it will be. Take care. Enjoy it. It's Victory Monday. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Victory Monday. Drink.